Welcome to Soft Cock Appreciation Week 2024. I invite you to get comfortable as you join us for what I like to call cockversations, discussions, or grown folk putting their heads together and sharing ideas in authentic and real ways. Now be aware we don't hold back in our language, and what follows is not for overly sensitive or easily kerfuffled ears. And before we dive in, remember, what is shared here is not meant to be, nor is it a replacement for medical advice. Whenever you notice changes in your body or that of a loved one, especially in how the penis is functioning, please seek out medical consultation. What the penis is saying could literally save a life. Thank you for supporting us. If you take away something useful from this, please let us know, write a review, spread the word, and keep coming back for more. Are you ready? Let's do it. Hello, everybody. Welcome to 2024 Soft Cock Appreciation Week. I am your hostess, Erica Leroye. Today, I am a mellow mush aficionado. I was thinking recently, after some other conversations, about not everybody resonates with the word cock. So just playing with different language, different wording, different alliteration. And I was thinking about how much I love just slipping my hand down someone's pants and feeling that nice, mellow mound of mush. It really is one of my favorite sensory realities. It's so yummy. So that should say a lot about the kind of person that I am. And I am super excited because today we have my good friend Jessie Fresh with us. And Jessie Fresh is going to talk to us about the erotic blueprints and how different styles of being a human can be explored and enjoyed and ruminated on and learned. And in particular, how different erectile functions and kind of the penis and all of the different ways that these blueprints show up. So super excited. Jessie and I met probably 5-6 years ago?
Yeah.
5-6 years ago when we were both living in Portland, Oregon. And since we met, we've had opportunity to share ideas, collaborate on different projects. I was on your wonderful Behind the Bedroom Doors during the pandemic, which I recommend that people is still on YouTube, right, Jessie? Yep. So go onto YouTube and watch Jessie do some incredible conversations of her own over there. And Jessie's a coach. She's just an all-around phenomenal human being. We've watched each other go through changes in relationship, changes in who am I? What am I? What am I doing? Should I still be doing this? What the fuck? But this is our mission and we keep coming back to it. So what a treat. What a treat for everybody who is getting to be part of Soft Cock Appreciation Week to have this time with Jessie, to hear the wisdom and the fun and the levity that she brings to her work and her understanding. And I have to say, I am a super novice when it comes to the whole schema of the blueprints. There are things about it I'm familiar with out of my own life journey, but I'm really excited to sort of sit at your feet today or at your shoulder. And learn. So, Jessie, how would you like to start?
So, I would like to start by first introducing kind of what I do and why this area of nerdery with Soft Cock Week is relevant. So I found the erotic blueprints with the mentor that I worked with, Jaya. She founded them. They are the 5 ways you can be wired for arousal. And by understanding these 5 types, you can better understand how to bring up turn on and arousal in your body. And before we begin, can you remind me like just what the mission of Soft Cock Week is, just so that I can stay in focus?
Yes. So the mission of Soft Cock Appreciation Week is to bring forward the idea that, so we have our little statement for the year, which is take a penetration vacation to explore the wisdom your body is trying to tell you and the possibilities it has to share. Right. So Soft Cock Week is really about no matter how you show up, like one side of the equation is no matter how you show up, you're good. You don't have to be
Mm-hmm.
hard to play. You don't have to be
Mm-hmm.
hard to give pleasure. You don't have to be hard. You don't need your man to be hard. You don't need to be hard for your partner. It's
Mm-hmm.
nice when it's there, but it's just one of many opportunities in the realm of what's available on the giant buffet of pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one side, right?
Great.
That's
Okay.
the other side is as your penis can be telling you something that you need to learn how to listen to, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that might be medical,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I have a couple people who are talking kind of a little bit more about some things that aren't usually talked about medically, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it can be other types of physical, and it can be what is stress. One of our guests said, really 90% of the time, men are walking around with a soft cock,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So as I've been thinking
I
about
love
it,
this 90%.
I know, I know.
All right.
So, or of your week, right? I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
say that all the time, right? That majority of the life of a penis, it's tucked in some pants and over to the side and kind of just
Mm-hmm.
hanging out, not welcome to be at the party. And
Mm-hmm.
then there's part of the day you're masturbating or you're having sex or whatever, and it becomes only about the cock and not about the rest of the body,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's the part that we're trying to expand, right?
Mm-hmm.
That everything is welcome, but that also the cock can tell you ahead of time if you're having some heart disease, if you're having some diabetes, if you're having some prostate issues. So that's the physical, but it also sometimes can tell you, like, I need to do some work on myself,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or I need to do some work in this relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe this isn't the right relationship for me because no matter how much I'm convincing myself that I need to stay in it, my penis is saying, this is not a welcoming place for me.
Mm. Thank you for that.
Hmm. Thank
Great.
you. Okay, so with that said, why don't you start again with,
Okay.
I'm going to ask you the question again. Jessie, how would you like to begin?
Well, I am interested in talking about soft cock appreciation in terms of how it relates to your turn on and your pleasure. I am a nerd when it comes to arousal and turn on because turn on wasn't always something that I could achieve easily. And it wasn't something that I knew how to influence. And so, upon studying the erotic blueprints, it became very clear that there's certain types of ways that people are wired for arousal, and that that directly relates to your erectile tissue becoming full and plump, your brain being able to relax into the experience, um, and experiencing high levels of pleasure with or without orgasm. Um, and so that's something that is what I want to bring to this topic is that not all cocks respond to just being fondled and groped, and that there's
Mm,
other ways to play with penises so that there is uh, an accurate way of ringing true to what that person's arousal is, their
mm,
specific type.
love it. Love it.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, lead us along. We're
Okay.
going to learn about the types.
Okay. So, first I'll talk about sort of um, the standard or the status quo of what we've been shown to do with a penis when we want it to do something. And like you said earlier, placing your hands down someone's pants and fondling is usually the first go to for what our examples are. And in terms of the erotic blueprints, there's only one blueprint that really gets turned on by that. So that blueprint is called the sexual blueprint. That blueprint is turned on by direct genital stimulus. Uh, they get turned on by visual nudity and seeing like a hot body. They get turned on by explicit dirty talk. And so when their genitals are played with, I've actually had clients that will say that when my genitals are played with, it feels like I'm being loved.
Mm,
And so for those people, that's where arousal really rings true in that approach of direct genital stimulus.
wonderful. Okay, let me interrupt you for a second.
Yeah.
Before
The
we go into
overview?
each one, can you give like what the hell is erotic blueprint? Like I'm
Yes.
tuning in, I don't know what it is. This is foreign language to me. So give us the schema. And it's great because now you've given an example. So as you're giving the schema, we're going to get excited
Collect.
about each one that we're going to go through. But give us the whole.
Yes. Okay, so the erotic blueprints are a new discovery in sexuality within the last 10 years that outline a framework of how to understand arousal. There are 5 different types of ways that you can be wired for arousal. Each type has very specific things that turn them on in terms of touch and what turns on their brain, what turns on their body. And they also have certain challenges that they encounter when those needs aren't being met. So, I'll go over the 5. The 5, and these aren't in any particular order, but one of them is called the energetic, one is the sensual, the next is the sexual, then we have the kinky and the shapeshifter. And you can be one of these, you can be a combination of them. And by understanding them, it gives you a language to then recognize what your needs are and to ask for those needs to be met and to recognize what the needs are of your partner and meet those needs and create greater compatibility by understanding how to turn on each other.
Great. Okay. Super
Yes.
juicy. And this came out of the work. Will you say your mentor's name again?
Yes, this came out of the work of Jaya.
Jaya.
I almost called her Miss Jaya, which that's her website.
Okay. Well, there you go.
Yeah, Jaya is
Okay.
wonderful.
Okay. So you just told us about the sexual, meaning
Hmm.
the person who both as the giver and the receiver, like, is it like I'm saying, this is my turn on to put my hand either over the pants or under the pants and just kind of feel that nice mushy mound. That's my pleasure, or the person who has the penis's pleasure. If they're receiving it and that gives them pleasure, then that makes them the sexual type.
Typically, when I'm describing the turn on, it's what that person receives that
Okay.
creates arousal. But also, I could see where a sexual would really enjoy feeling someone else's wet genitals as well,
Mhm.
or it sexual energy to them in terms of erections or wetness or heat is really
Mhm.
exciting to them as well. So seeing someone turned on, feeling someone's turn on in terms of body signals is hot to them as well.
Mhm. Excellent. Let's just hang out on that
Yeah.
phrase you just gave. So body signals, right? I think a
Hmm.
lot of people who have erectile flow challenges
Hmm.
have trouble even reading their own body signals. So a lot
Mm.
of what you're talking about, or part, not a lot, but part of what you're talking about with each part of the blueprint is that there's something that the person is feeling in their body that kind of ignites the switch
Hmm.
to turn them on. And that there's
Hmm.
something, and that not everybody's way of having this, we call it interoception, right? That something
Mm.
inside the body is tracking that says, ooh,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah. Well, there's 2 parts that relate to that. Like I thought of what's happening to their brain or their mind. Their mind is getting very captivated by what's happening. So they get singularly focused on whatever the sensation is that they're receiving. And usually, when there is higher levels of turn on, the focus becomes very narrowed in. So that's one
Mm,
sign, is that like, oh, I stopped thinking about
mm,
what was for dinner or, what's on my to-do list because it became so captivating that what I was
mm.
receiving.
Okay,
So that's
beautiful.
one part, is like your brain is in flow state or it's making its way to flow state. It's slowing down, it's relaxing more. Maybe your breath is changing. Our
Mm,
breath signals usually to our brain when we're safe or not. And so when we become relaxed, our breath is much slower of a pace. It's more deep into our pelvis rather than just in our chest.
mm,
And simple breath or signals of breath or breath changes can signify when there's turn on. For instance, I love talking about moaning because moaning is there needs to be billboards about people needing to moan
yeah,
more.
totally,
Yeah.
totally. You're speaking my language.
Yeah, and moaning relates to how we relax as well. It helps calm our nervous system. and it helps us to get deeper into a place of pleasure. So sometimes when I'm encouraging clients to express their pleasure, it might come up in how they breathe. And it might also come up in how that breath is expressed. And sometimes breath with sound is an expression. Oh gosh, you just made this.
I know.
I know. I just heard like that very brief, and that was enough for me to be like, huh, what's happening? Yes. And usually moaning also gives, like what just happened. It signals that turn on is happening, or it signals that pleasure is happening. So it almost opens up pleasure for other people as well, as long as it's coming off as authentic, and not performative.
Yes. Well, and the other thing I learned just this last year is that making that sound when we hum, humming, which is really the sound, is a vehicle for sending nitric oxide through the body. And nitric oxide is what you need for an erection. There are men who take it as a pill. There are ways that, when you do your HIIT training. But if you're starting to have some change in erectile flow while you're having intercourse, whether with yourself or someone else, and you notice that there's some waning happening, that's always the cue I give the men that I work with of give your body the praise that you're enjoying it through a and that actually will send more nitric oxide down into that nice juicy spongy tissue and help plump you up.
I love that.
Yeah.
Now we'll be moaning throughout the episode.
I mean, as soon as you said plump, I was like, oh. I got plump erectile tissue too.
Yes. So, other body signals, just to review, we did like the mind becomes focused, the breath becomes deeper. Maybe there's expression of pleasure through sound. There's also usually, I don't want to typecast anyone's arousal because it shows up in so many different ways, but the change in breath also starts to change the body's response, or it's a simultaneous thing that often little twitches maybe happen, or the hips start moving, or the body becomes more open, meaning in posture of like the shoulders relax, and the back maybe arches, and that beginning signal of electricity starts to move through the body.
Yeah.
Now we're both like undulating. Yes. Yeah. And so those are signals that I pay attention to when it comes to arousal. But I also want to be very clear that I have had many clients where I am visually watching them and seeing those signals of turn on. But then when I actually ask them how high their level of arousal is, it's lower than what I would think. So just as a disclaimer, like just because you see someone writhing and moaning and visually expressing turn on, that maybe they're having a different experience. So always helpful to check in. Yeah.
Great. And what you just described, these body signals, that's in all the blueprints, right? Or is that just in that's in all that's not part of the sexual only. What we're saying now, just to clarify, is that this is what we're talking when we talk about sort of the embodiment side of arousal. There's the cueing from our mouth, there's the cueing from our imagination, there's the cueing from our words, there's the cueing from our body. And that can either help us, this is what my understanding from what you're saying, is help us understand what blueprint we fall into. And also, I love what you said, like so much about good sexual connection and intimate connection is not like looking at somebody and kind of analyzing it or scrutinizing it or being shocked and what the fuck about it, but just seeing what's happening with this person and how do I adjust. Okay, so sexual. So keep going.
The sexual blueprint loves to have their genitals fondled, and that's where turn on will happen. And so if that approach is given to the 4 other blueprints that exist, sometimes it creates complications because it's not how they're wired for turn on. So, for example, when I work with people that struggle to create an erection or they struggle to keep an erection, I am often looking at, well, what's their blueprint? Because maybe their blueprint will inform why this is happening. So the energetic blueprint is a blueprint that is someone that's more wired for subtlety. Instead of going
Mm.
right to the genitals, maybe instead the way that you initiate is by looking at them and thinking about how you want to touch them. And they are so highly perceptive and aware of subtlety. They're like great poker players because they
Mm.
can just sense like what that little eyebrow twitch meant. Sometimes they can be telepathic. And so they're very, very sensitive to other people's energy. And therefore, going straight to the genitals for them actually shuts them down.
Mm.
It overwhelms their nervous system. And instead of going into pleasure, it usually goes into fight or flight. If approached in a way that's not subtle, they enjoy not appreciate. They do every one of them enjoys appreciation, but I meant to say anticipation.
Mm.
They need something slower because their body is more sensitive, and therefore they're an antenna that picks up a lot of energy daily. So they need something that's a slower approach, a more intentional approach in terms of taking time and space to turn them on. And because they are often taking on so much information from other people naturally, they need things to be slower so that they can crave and long and pounce.
Mm.
When you've turned on an energetic in a way that works for them, they begin to pounce once that safety is met and once that subtlety and anticipation is met.
Okay, so let's say I have a partner
Hmm.
and they are energetic
Hmm.
and they're having some erectile issues,
Hmm.
and I want to come forward as their partner and see if there are some new ways that I can approach.
Hmm.
There's there's the part that you're saying that's like I'm ready for sex, and if I'm sitting on the couch, what I'm kind of gonna look at them over my book, give them the eye,
Uh-huh.
right? I mean, is that sort of what you're saying? How does this look in the living room or the bedroom?
I love
Or
that question.
or in the days in between sex, like if I'm trying to keep some arousal life going
Hmm.
in the day to day with my partner's penis, even
Mm.
if we're not going to have sex that day, I want to like just keep it feeling connected. How would I do that for an energetic?
Hmm. So for an energetic, and we'll take the living room example because it's less deliberate somewhat. So the energetic would, if you were if you were on the couch and you're reading a book and maybe you start thinking about the things you want to do to them or the things that you're fantasizing about or what would be the ideal sexy scenario, and then you start to actually look at them and think of them in this way. You're just like sending little telepathic messages of like, I'm a little bit turned on right now. And like, are you available for that?
Mm.
One thing that works really well for them is some form of consent. And sometimes that can be like a signal that's nonverbal, or sometimes it can be like, I'm feeling pretty turned on right now. Do you mind if I attempt to turn you on?
Hmm.
And just something that open with communication and where they get to actually tune into their body and say, yeah, I'm open to that. Or like, no, actually, I have something that's blocking me from that, or I'm not open to it.
Mhm.
So that can be really helpful for them, getting some kind of consent around whether or not they can be approached.
Nice. We know consent is an important thing. I mean, not sort
Hmm.
of it's an important thing,
Hmm.
but I like kind of what I'm hearing you say is if I'm on the couch and I see my sexual part, my partner who's sexual, we already have established some consent. Most likely, that penis is totally fine with me coming over and just sitting on his lap and putting my hand down his pants. Right? That's going to be the sexual. Whereas the energetic is going to be the I'm starting to feel in my body, that I'm turned on.
Hmm.
Start to think about you, kind of get the air, get it moving in the
Get the
molecules in the
mood
air,
change
right?
and
Get the mood
huh?
changing,
Yeah.
and then to say, "Ooh, I'm really thinking about how much I'd like to come over and touch you right now.
Hmm.
Would that be okay with you?"
Hmm.
Right?
And
That would be.
Yeah, that would like I'm like, yes, that would be hot because it then it's anticipatory as well. If there's a yes, there is all that anticipation of like, okay, now that person is now what? Like now they want to touch me and now
Mm,
how long is it going to take them to get to my neck? Or it just
mm,
brings in this like which
right.
for them being able to wait or being able to crave just feels so good.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
This makes me think too about like sexting and having like building up some of that anticipation, like what I was saying in between
Mhm.
of just those little love notes of, "Ooh, I'm really thinking about you," in the middle of
Mhm.
the, I'm at work, but I'm thinking about how delicious you feel in my mouth, right?
Mhm. Yeah, priming for them is really, really helpful because priming is like getting stoking the fire of your erotic energy or your eroticism and keeping the pilot light on.
Mm,
So for them, priming and being able to like play with arousal throughout the day to where it just stokes the fire, not to be ripping and roaring, but so that when that is finally a go, that you're not starting at a 0, you're starting at like a 3 out of 5 of arousal.
gotcha, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna throw a curveball at you, which is,
Okay.
what if I don't have a partner and I'm energetic? What would I be doing inside of my own head? I'm just not really feeling like I want to masturbate anymore, right? Which we
Mhm.
know is like you have to keep doing it. So,
Mm.
what would be a way that an energetic would do some self turn on?
Mhm. Well, that's really a great point because a lot of energetics, if they think that they need to masturbate in a sexual blueprint manner, they won't enjoy masturbation
Mm,
because for them, it's not how their body gets aroused. Like just rubbing one out is not necessarily what appeals to them. So sometimes energetics can think that they have a low libido, but it's just that the way they've actually been approaching themselves is not authentic to what their turn on is.
mm,
Some examples might be that you do energetic touch. I used to have this sex challenge when I was an energetic and I was very frustrated because I wasn't able to I wasn't embracing this part of me. I was more so like rejecting it. And
mm,
so what I did is I kind of started to introduce energetic touch to myself anytime I used the bathroom. Um, because it's a private space. Say that you do what you need to do in the bathroom, you wash your hands, and then you're like, ugh, okay, I'm going to do some energetic touch for like a minute. And so what I would do is I would start to do like light hovering touch on my neck. I would go down my body. I would maybe hint to different erogenous zones, like by tracing over it, but not
mm,
concentrating there. And what this is referred to in the blueprint framework is like feeding your blueprint. You're filling up your cup of what would turn you on. So I would do that as the prime of like bringing in that safety, bringing in that slowness, turning myself on,
mm,
and then going on to the next thing. And what I actually remember from that challenge the most is that anytime I was in traffic, I would also do it. And
yeah.
traffic became so much more captivating. And I can almost, my memory really can remember almost every single time that I ever did that in
Yeah.
traffic because it became captivating.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's
Nice.
one thing. And then also the way in which an energetic self pleasures is teasing the shit out of yourself. So
Mm,
it is not giving yourself full satisfaction. It is maybe introducing touch that makes you want more. And so you play with
nice.
edging yourself or you play with tracing your whole body first
Mhm.
and making sure that the turn on is already there before you even get to touching primary erogenous zones like nipples or genitals and that.
Fabulous, fabulous. And I'm
Yeah.
thinking too that, and again, I'm just spitballing here. A lot of people who have more neurodivergence might not have touch even as part of a big part of their turn on. So I
Mm,
know, like with some of the men that I work with, then I'm really encouraging them, like, first of all, giving yourself permission to look forward to something, right? Like,
mm,
later
mhm.
on, I'm going to fuck the shit out of that sleeve. Later tonight, I'm at the end of my day after work. I'm going to I'm going to give myself 15 minutes to just connect in and relax and touch myself and let the day go. But to go ahead and like, it's okay to like, same thing in the bathroom, like, go in the stall and like just take a minute and just be like, no matter what is going on with my day to day, later, I'm going to do something that makes me feel good.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that kind of aligned?
Spot on.
Okay,
Spot on. And
good.
even like naughty talk for energetics works better when it's what you're talking about that's going to happen later.
Mm,
Because it gives them that like, oh, I get to look forward to that all day long, like when I get home, like
mm,
they usually when I'm turned on and my energetic blueprint is really like activated, I'm like nail biting because I'm like,
yeah,
oh, this is gonna be
right.
so good. There's so much build up. Build up is
Nice.
so fun for them.
Good. Okay, so
Yeah.
if you are an energetic, if you are a person with a penis and you're an energetic, again, the things that might make you go, "Oh, that sounds like me," is, really feeling something as a charge when
Mm-hmm.
you're thinking about what has yet to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That is a titillation, something that you can feel.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe another thing you would be in your self-awareness is that you are more sensitive, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're sensitive to the energy of the people around you,
Mm-hmm.
right? That if
Yeah.
someone's in a good mood, you might be more in a good mood. If someone's in a bad mood, you might pick that up and take that on, right? So that might be a
Yeah.
way to self-identify, oh, huh, this might actually be more who I am and thus what I need.
Yeah, and that can be very distracting for them if they're having sex with someone and the person they're having sex with is thinking, God, how long does it take for them to get turned on already?
Mm,
That you can feel that. An energetic cannot deny that feeling and the intention behind the touch. If the intention behind the touch is, oh my God, I'm so fucking turned on, versus, God, can't they just get it up already?
yeah.
It's going to ring differently in their body and they'll be able to feel it.
Love it.
Mhm.
Okay. All
Mhm.
right. So far I'm sexual and energetic.
Okay, great. You could be all of them. And maybe you are. So another blueprint is the sensual blueprint.
Okay.
And the sensual blueprint needs beauty and relaxation to be able to
Mm,
get turned on. And when I say beauty, they appreciate the beauty of clothing, the appreciation of a space, of the whole evening. Like a date for a sensual blueprint is something that's going to play with all of their senses and bring pleasure to all of their senses.
mm,
So it's somewhat the stereotype of what women want in our culture, which is not necessarily true. It's just what we've been branded of. They could enjoy like a warm shower or a bubble bath. They like candlelit dinners. They love to eat food that makes them moan. And all of
mhm.
those things help them relax to then slip into arousal much more easy. Things also, the type of touch that maybe turns them on is full body touch. They
Mhm.
like a full body massage, or they like, if you go straight to the genitals of someone that has a penis that's sensual, they often are like, okay, but like, what about my whole body?
Right. My
They
shoulders are tight.
Yeah. And one thing that kinks them up in terms of not being able to relax is this pressure to get aroused. For
Mm,
sensuals, they're like, why is there pressure when we can be like sipping wine and eating chocolate and be
mm,
doing massage and putting on our playlist and taking a long, easy, pleasurable route? Because for them, the more the better.
mm.
And when it's more of a pressured time, like a short amount of time or any kind of pressure, when I was in more of a sensual blueprint, my arousal would disappear as soon as I thought, oh God, what's taking you so long? And I was putting that pressure on myself. So, what that does, those thoughts create fear in your body and anxiety. And then usually you can't have the arousal show up because
Yes, because
fear and
adrenaline is
stress they don't
adrenaline
work.
is a boner killer. That's what I
Yes.
heard from one of the foremost experts, urology experts. You're,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah. We're meant to be running, not running
Right.
with a
Right.
boner. I mean, that sounds uncomfortable. Sprinting from the tiger. So yeah, so the sensuals, their approach is we're taking our time. That's the
Mm.
energy of it, or the thoughts around it is like we're taking our time, we're savoring the moment. Um, we're gonna play with maybe like temperatures of like warm temperatures. And I usually try to make sure that all five of my senses are in a zone of pleasure.
Okay, so just say the senses because
The
it,
senses, yes. So is what I'm seeing pleasurable?
mm,
Is what I'm hearing pleasurable? Is what I'm feeling pleasurable? Is what I'm smelling pleasurable? What I'm tasting pleasurable? Yes. So if two or more of those are not pleasurable, what's going to happen is the sensual blueprint gets so distracted and pulled out of the moment, and you're not able to experience arousal when you're like, God damn, I hate that song. Why is that song on our playlist?
Right.
Or
why is the laundry on the floor?
yeah, or like, God, that the red onion in that salad is really making my breath reek, and I feel like I'm like imposing red onion breath on this person. You know, all these intrusive thoughts that show up for them really begin to take them out of the moment. And what they need to do is address those things that are coming up. So change the song on the playlist. Be like, excuse me, I need to like just brush my teeth and make this so much better, which a lot of people don't think that that's valid, to take the time to pause a moment and to course correct, but it helps them so much by mitigating distraction.
I think this is really important, especially for the sensual, because you know the sensual already is okay with pace, with a longer pace. Knowing that I have time makes it easier for me to then say, oh, you know what? Let me stop because my mouth is parched and I'm over aware of my dry mouth. And so it's making it really hard for me to like go down on you. Right. Or to just be present with you, because the part of my mind is aware too of like something isn't quite right in the room, something isn't quite right in my body. And I think a lot of people are afraid to stop when the sexual, sensual action is happening, but take it from, you know, that maybe one of the things the sensual can offer to all of us is that we have time to linger, right? We have time to linger in things, which makes it easier to then say, let's make that adjustment. So if I'm a person, again, let's go back to the living room. So I have a partner, they have a penis, they're struggling with erectile ebb and flow, and struggling meaning they're frustrated, right? And I want to provide, you know, an energy that will help invite the sensual penis to feel welcome. What are some things I would do?
I go straight to pampering. So pampering and care. Yeah. Pampering is just helpful for them because pampering is something that allows you to slowly get out of your day-to-day thinking and puts you right into your body. So something like, um, do you want, would you be open to us like going to the shower right now? I really am feeling like I want to put on a playlist and like play with bathing each other. Bathing another person and like taking care of them in that way, and just warm water in general works wonders in terms of relaxing people. So something like that, like an activity that makes you relax. So for instance, like I used to, when I was really trying to care for my sensual, I would make sure my room was sexy. My room was, by my room being sexy and taken care of, I could more easily slip into turn on. So that was one thing of like a sexy space is going to make me slip into feeling sexier. And then some kind of pampering of, I would go on walks where I would sniff flowers and touch plants, or I would bathe with my partner. And that alone was enough to like wash away all of the day's worries and to kind of set this precedent of like, we're taking our time because first we're going to bathe, then I'm going to oil you up. We're going to give each other massages. There's no pressure. Maybe I just did some genital massage. Making it very, very fun and indulgent. Sensuals love to indulge.
Nice. So everything that you just said too, you know, in my work with masturbation coaching, I feel like that's, you know, what I'm encouraging. So again, I really want to reiterate that everything that you're saying when we're talking about it in relationship to a duo or a trio or however many, that all of these things are also things that people with a penis can do for themselves, if they're
Oh
like,
yeah.
oh, this is who I am, that like treating your penis and your scrotum and your perineum and your asshole and your whole body in these ways that Jessie is describing, like that's how what you can take from this also in terms of, are there things that I can do solo with this knowledge to encourage and see if playing with the way that I turn myself on and not relying on someone else to turn me on, is possible. Because that's a skill. A lot of people haven't learned that skill of like, oh, how do I turn myself on, let alone how do I turn on with a partner?
Yeah.
So
And also
pamper, man, men just don't, that's a word.
pamper.
Men do not pamper very much themselves. So
And what's funny is that like so I try to pamper myself like at least once a week and have just like a night where I am as little as taking a longer shower with a good playlist is enough for me to be like, check that list.
yeah,
But what I've noticed in having partners that are men, like because they don't pamper that often on their own, the smallest amount is indulgent for them, which feels really, really fun. Like if I give my partner a pedicure, it's like the news of the week or the news of the month of like, oh my God. So a little goes a long way when it comes to pampering, and it doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be take a ton of time. So that can be really, really fun.
foot and calf and leg massage too.
Yeah.
Like so many men, their legs are so tight.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that tightness because of the fascia can actually impact the erectile capacity as well. I'm going to treat you like a king and sit at your feet. It's the Magdalene treatment, right? Like,
But also this brings up receiving,
yeah.
that a lot of men are focused on how can I be a good lover and how can I pleasure a woman, or how can I bring pleasure to another person, that their practice in receiving is small
Yes.
or smaller, and therefore they're uncomfortable receiving. So receiving and pampering can also open up a practice that allows you to become comfortable receiving in other ways.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. Okay. So sexual,
Hmm.
grab it, baby.
Yeah, just do it.
And
Touch it.
energetic. I'm thinking about grabbing it, baby.
I'm thinking about it, and if there's
And
a
is it
yes,
okay? Right.
I'm going to tease the shit out of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then sensual is let me pamper it, baby.
Yes. Ooh.
And then
Yes.
where are we going next?
Next is kinky.
Ooh, oh.
Boing. Well, I just saw your body respond. So the kinky blueprint is the blueprint that's turned on by naughtiness, taboo, and that's whatever is personal to you, because we each have a different criteria and definition for what's naughty or taboo. So there's two different areas of taboo though, that or kink, that can create avenues of arousal. One is turning on your mind with the taboo of fantasy, role play, um, control and surrender, power dynamics, turning on the mind. And then the other avenue is through sensory play, and that's playing with more of like an intensity with taboo, of playing with spankings or getting your hair pulled, or scratches or nibbles or bites, things that bring up the intensity, that's like, ooh, that's naughty, that's bringing in some kind of risk, some kind of fear maybe, but the fear that comes up in kink, it is often calculated, so that it's going to lead to more pleasure and not danger. So
Well,
you're
it's
go
the
ahead.
adrenaline. I was just going to say where we talked before about how adrenaline is a boner killer. It's for those who actually adrenaline is a turn on hormone, but by channeling it into kink, it gets modulated. So it's not, it's not a boner killer. It's an arousal. Although there are plenty of people who do kink play where there is like, the erection is not supposed to show up.
Yeah, or the genitals, like that's the beauty of kink, is that you can play with so many different kinks and not include genitals at all. So an erection is not necessarily even a part of it.
Right.
Yeah. And there's times when I've been in kink scenes where my brain is so turned on and my body's so turned on, but my genitals aren't necessarily like uh they're not a part of it in a sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say, and then I'll have you explain kink more, but one of the things that I've noticed is that the men, especially older men that I've worked with, where maybe because of diabetes or prostate or heart disease, where there isn't going to be an erection,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
that rather than give up, they sort of crossed the Rubicon over to
I
embracing their
love that.
kinkiness.
Yeah.
They might be the ones who show up for a session wearing like lace underwear. Part of it's the sensual part, but part of it is I'm a little naughty, right? They
Yeah, yeah,
like when
yeah.
I undo their pants and I'm surprised by like, oh, okay, or they're in a little cage, or they have something, or they brought their toy bag full of things, but that they've created a way to connect to this kink blueprint
Mm-hmm,
in what feels like a turn on for them,
mm-hmm.
that has to do with, much more of this other kind of energy that isn't just that the penis has to be the center of the play date.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
Okay, so
Yeah.
tell us more.
Well, that just highlights how creative they are and that being
Mm,
creative really plays into their turn on. If you were to do the same kink to someone routinely, night after night, they're going to become bored probably, and it'll become more of a rut than a turn on.
mm,
So, something that they really enjoy is playing with pervertibles, things that are not necessarily things that you would buy at a sex store, but things maybe that come from the kitchen that you use to spank them with, or, um, thinking outside of the box is really what lights them up.
mm.
Yeah. And the
Yeah.
more creative you can get, or the more creative, it's like an individual thing. Like just because I want to make a differentiation that like BDSM doesn't, it's one part of being kinky. There's so many other things besides BDSM.
Mhm,
So it's ABCD BDSM. Just because you're kinky doesn't mean that you necessarily want to wear lace underwear, but it's
mhm.
about finding the specific things that light you up.
Right.
And everyone has a very specific individual menu. So being able to find the things that your person or your penis likes
Mhm,
is really great and really
mhm.
helpful.
I wonder too, I mean, sometimes what I notice as a trend in working with men where they're like, why isn't my penis showing up? Is that there's a lot of shame
Mhm.
around, is it okay that I have these thoughts? Is it okay that
Mhm.
this turns me on? Is there something
Mhm.
wrong with me? As
Mhm.
opposed to maybe not knowing what their turn on is, what turns them on. There can be this place of, is this okay? And I think part of
Mhm.
what you're saying is that, especially if this is part of your turn on blueprint, as long as you're not hurting yourself or others, then
Mhm.
explore it.
Mhm. And yes, this is a great point that when you have a kinky idea, that you first bring it up in talking with another person if you're
Mhm,
going to attempt that with them. Bringing in a lot of conversation around it, not just like springing on choking someone. I hear that often of like, oh,
mm,
I was on a first date and we were making out and he just started choking me. And we can't assume that
yeah,
everyone enjoys the same things, and because it can be different or outside of what the norm is for some folks, really talking about it and playing with consent beforehand and using that as a way to create turn on of like, oh well, you are open to that, like maybe I'll do that
mm,
sometime this week.
mm,
Playing with
mhm.
that, yeah, that there's more where that came from later.
Say a little bit more about pervertibles.
They're my favorite.
Me too.
Pervertibles are items that you will find that usually it takes a naughty mind to create a pervertible because it's usually you look at something and you go, how could I use this in sex?
Mm,
Or how could I use this in spanking? Or how can I use this to tie someone up? And that can become just so fun. I'll share a story. Recently, I went to Burning Man and I was playing with someone intimately, and he was saying, "Oh, you're so squirmy," and he was saying, "Too bad I didn't bring anything to tie you up with."
mm,
And I said, "Well, first of all, I brought my own bondage because that's just who I am." And he said, "Well, great, I'll use that, and I have some ratchet straps." And for me, that was like I got a big fat boner because of
mhm.
that.
Yeah.
Because the creativity of using
Uh-huh.
ratchet straps to as bondage was definitely like in the pervertible kind of category, which I enjoy because it's so creative, but also highly effective. Ratchet straps are very good at what they do.
That's fabulous. That's fabulous. Okay, so the kinky blueprint
Hmm.
is highly creative, imaginative,
Hmm.
likes, to bring in a little bit more of that. I'm trying to, what's the word I'm trying to use? Because the sensual uses props. But this is
Hmm.
even like more prop oriented potentially.
It depends. Our
Okay.
hands are capable of doing everything we need
Okay,
in
great.
any of these blueprints. So it's usually playing with if you're more sensory kink, then it's playing with more intensity. So it's pulling your own hair during masturbation to the point that you feel like and
Uh-huh.
you have this like captivated kind of feel where you're right in the moment.
Mm.
Maybe if massaging is something that you enjoy, that like the kinky massage version is like slowing down and maybe bringing your nails into it and doing it to the point of all you can think about or look at is your nails scratching yourself, and
Mm.
that is the like the point of captivation. So with kink, it's really finding what captivates you,
Mm.
to the point that there's nothing else that exists besides that one thing.
Mm. Ooh, I like that. So,
Yes.
so if I'm on the couch and my partner is kinky, what am I gonna do?
Hmm. Um, well, okay, kinky people, I mean, every blueprint, turning on their mind turns on their whole body. And so being able to talk about some kind of fantasy that you have of like, oh, I
Mm.
was just sitting here reading my book and I was just thinking about what it would feel like to have your cock spanking my ass.
Ah, uh-huh.
Something that's like um swing,
Yeah.
that creates a this is what I was thinking about in my fantasy, and then it just kind of ignites the arousal.
Got it. Got it.
Maybe even like something that I think is kind of taboo and vulnerable is like if you were reading your book and you just started touching yourself on the couch in
Mm.
front of your partner. That even
Mm.
that can be kinky, the like, oh, I'm being an exhibitionist and I'm just starting something, and regardless of what my partner is involved in, like here I am just in my own moment, and like watch me.
Got it.
That kind that there's
Mm.
so many different things to play with.
Like that too, because in my work and the more from the sexological bodywork side of things, like that is where, masturbation, watching yourself masturbate, like putting
Mm,
that mirror there or using your phone to film yourself, doing some kind of
mhm.
like camera play that kind of has that edginess of, am I a
Oh yeah,
narcissist? Being able to, include that in your own personal turn on. I think of mirror play as your own voyeur exhibitionist activity.
definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nice.
I used to have a mirror as my headboard, and
Ooh.
it was such a fun masturbation kind of thing because um I would usually like take a long shower, oil up my body, and then I would just lay in front of the mirror and I would basically play with appreciating
Yeah.
the things that I saw. And what that led to is like realizing, for one, popping out of body dysmorphia where you think like, oh, look at
Mhm.
this part that's wrong with me or that part that's wrong with me, and instead focusing on the gratitude or the things that are hot. And then masturbating in front of a mirror really brings in, especially for vulva bodied people, like we can't see all that
Mhm.
angle going on.
Right.
And a lot of women that I work with that have discomfort with receiving oral, I often ask them, like, have you ever masturbated in front of a mirror? Have you ever looked at
Mhm.
yourself in a mirror? Because they don't have a lot of experience doing that and playing with the appreciation part. So being able to see yourself fully aroused and basically see like a point of view of what someone else might see in you
Mhm.
is can be really intoxicating.
So much so. And I want to emphasize too, because I think most of the men, that I've worked with,
Hmm.
they've never really looked. Like they might look
Mm,
down, but it's really different to, be slowly stroking and looking at your penis and really seeing like how it changes color,
hmm.
how what's happening with the veins, what's happening with the shape. I mean, taking that time to really, see how it responds to your touch, how your touch changes it, like taking that time. It's sort of, maybe that's more a combo of the kink and the sensual, but it's, it's so like, it's so good to do. And very few men do it because they really have the message too of like,
Hurry it up.
what kind of,
Get it done
or
with.
like, what kind of, like, why would I look at my dick? Right. Like, but that means that they're not often seeing the underside, and there's lots to
Yeah.
see on the underside or to be able to see things. So look at your dick.
Yeah, it's making me think like, be your own best lover. If you want someone to adore those parts of you, like it's best to have the adoration come from yourself first. Like if it really teaches, that has taught me how to how to
Yes,
choose better partners for myself, because if I'm loving myself fully, then I'm not going to pick anyone less, or that's doing less than that.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that it takes a lot to get to know yourself, and then to have this expectation that somehow what someone else wants, needs, likes. So to
Mm,
be able to do the upfront work of knowing what it is that you
mhm,
like and how you turn on and what it is that works for you, then that conversation is a lot less awkward when you do meet
mhm,
someone around, like, hey, like, I actually know what works for me, so let's have this conversation up front,
mhm.
because I don't want to waste my time or waste your time if it's going to be clear that we're going to be either incompatible or in a relationship that feels always like compromise, because
Mm,
that's an
mhm.
energy that isn't really enhancing arousal.
And it's just such a better conversation to have than when you're naked in the moment. Because I've
Right.
had conversations like that recently where I'm like, "Tell me how you like to be touched." And the person responds with, "Can you just figure it out?"
Yeah.
And me being like, "Ah,
Yeah.
okay, great. The guesswork is all in my hands."
Hmm.
Um,
Right.
or,
No.
yeah, there's more error for failure if someone doesn't know what they want and then they expect the other person to figure them out.
Right, right. And I think for many years, for many generations, the expectation was a woman doesn't know at all what she wants.
Hmm.
It's very taboo for a woman, to touch herself, learn about
Hmm.
herself. And then there was a change, in the, I'm old enough that I'm, of the Ms. Magazine on the coffee table, you know, feminist awakening, where, I grew up really being encouraged to know my body. But the men who are my age, I'm in my mid 50s, and the men who are my age, they didn't have that movement, right? So they
Hmm.
really don't. They're just starting to awaken
Hmm.
to, that this is okay to learn about yourself and what
Hmm.
turns you on, and then
Hmm.
be able to, not only not be the person who has to show up in the bedroom or the kitchen or wherever you're fucking and know it all,
Mm, mhm, mhm. I
which is a
mean,
big
that's just
pressure.
such a big pressure. Performance anxiety is, yeah,
Yeah.
huge with that.
Okay, so we have sexual, we
Mhm,
have energetic,
mhm,
sensual, kinky. What's
mhm.
the fifth?
The fifth is the shapeshifter.
Mm.
So if you, in listening to all these, have been like, "Ooh, that's me. Ooh, that's me. Ooh, I like a little bit of that and a little bit of that," you might be a shapeshifter. Shapeshifters really need variety. They need novelty. They do not survive well in routine, and they like a combination of maybe a little bit of all of what we just talked about. So sometimes being a shapeshifter feels like you want to eat at the buffet all the time, and you want a little bit of this and a lot of that and a little bit of this, and it might change day to day, moment to moment, meal to meal. So the way in which a shapeshifter might enjoy their cock being approached is some way that's new. For instance, if it is routine for them and boredom is often what makes them retreat out of their sexuality and go into like a hibernation.
Mm.
So something that's different, something that is new. So and getting creative with it as well. And sometimes just asking a shapeshifter like, "What do you want?" is really helpful, because if they're a shapeshifter that really knows what it is that they want and need, they might know exactly what it is. And it makes it such an easy thing to be like, okay, I can give you exactly that. When I first became a shapeshifter, being able to know what I wanted and needed did not feel accessible. And so when I was asked, what do I want? I got overwhelmed by that. And instead of being able to say what I wanted, I just overthought it and therefore shut down. So sometimes shapeshifters really benefit also from having two options presented to them.
Okay.
Of like, I could touch your cock like this, or I could touch your cock like that. Which one do you want? Giving them two options narrows the focus so that they can go, okay, not that and yes to that, or like not that and not that, something else. So that can be really helpful for them.
Nice. Or I could also imagine, since you said it's that conglomeration of it all, that the choice could be, you know, I could come right over and touch your cock, or I can bring you beer and rub your head.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So one might be
real.
more like to the sexual, and one might be more to the sensual.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep,
like
definitely.
that. Right. So that they're you're giving them choices within the variety.
Yeah. And so shapeshifters, they are highly sophisticated lovers typically. And because of that, they, in order to stay captivated, they might need two flavors going back and forth. I'm meaning two blueprints. For instance, the example you just used of like sexual and sensual. If you were to play with massage and then to play with like oral sex, and doing two or more blueprints with them is what keeps them captivated enough to be in the moment for them. So sometimes I'll encourage shapeshifters to play with contrast of like something soft and then something hard, something light and then something sharp, something dualities that in sensation play that allow them to feel like, oh, there's so much going on, and I'm like, I'm feeling so much, and therefore I'm in the moment.
Wonderful.
So
yeah.
I guess when I think of like the sensual and the sexual put together, an example of that would be like giving someone oral, or like giving oral to that penis, but then also like massaging their thighs at the same time, or alternating between like deep throating and playing with doing more like massage kind of techniques on their cock and balls.
Beautiful. It's making me think about so one of the things from my sessions that just always works with it always works. It's amazing. Like, you know, and I guess no matter what the blueprint, something about this always works, which is that I use satin sheets. Right? I get from Groupon. They've got, you know, it's a nice thickness of satin sheet, and I put the satin side over the skin, and then I'll just, you know, move the fabric over their legs and over their inner thighs, and just kind of be rubbing the fabric over the genitals, you know, in the scrotum, all over the penis, and just that combination of like the touch, the slow touch of the movement, combined with the silky, it's not even silky, right? The satininess, because it's thicker, the satininess of the glide, the naughtiness of, like, for me, I think about this all the time. Like, there's an energy around touching over fabric that to me is very middle school.
Yeah, over the pants hand job.
Yeah, like that's kind of like, or early exploring. Like we're watching a movie,
dry
but
humping.
You're touching me, you know, over the blanket, right?
I love it.
Or kind of our hands we're under the blanket, but like we're watching the movie and like, ooh, I'm gonna just go over your shorts or whatever, like that. So something about like combining, like coming up with simple ways to combine a little bit of the sensory, a little bit of that unexpected, a little bit of that naughty, you know, gets it. I mean, I've never had, I mean, all the penises that have come to me saying, you know, like, I'm not sure how, how I want to play. I don't know. Can you please decide how we're playing today? Right. And that's the pampering too. Let me be the one to lead and guide. And a little kinky too, right? Let me allow you to be submissive and me take control. Then, that particular thing. So I'm just saying, go get yourself, a satin sheet. Wonders.
Definitely
Wonders
would
for the
work for
penis.
me every time.
Great. Okay, so those are the 5.
Yeah.
And wonderful. I mean, this is really helpful. I guess
different strokes for different folks,
different.
That's just the name of this interview, probably. Different strokes for
I
different
love
folks.
it. Okay,
Yeah.
there we have it. Different strokes. Different strokes for different folks.
Yeah.
Yes, playing around with the erotic blueprints. And Jessie, you've talked quite a bit at little bits and pieces about working with people. So if people are watching this, listening to this, and they're like, oh my God, Erica was right. This woman is super hot. She just knows her stuff. I think I could learn from her. How do people get more of you?
Yeah. My website is jessiefresh.com, JESSIE. Fresh as in like, fresh fruit. And you can contact me there. I have a lot of free resources as well. I primarily work with couples that want to have a hotter sex life, but I also work with individuals as well. So I am open.
Fabulous, fabulous. And then we're going to end with me asking you, what is something that has deliciously, pleasantly surprised you when playing with someone who did not have an erect penis?
This is a selfish answer. That a lot of the attention gets put on me. For instance, I had an experience at Burning Man with someone where sometimes when you're playing with different substances that inhibit erections, it becomes more so about like, how do we just play with pleasure and play and play and play? And so there was so much attention put on me, but then also I got to put attention on him. But because penetration was taken off of the menu, it got so creative, and like the timing went from like it went to 4 hours of playing. So, I mean, the only reason we left the bed was because we were hungry and we needed to like replenish ourselves. So, yeah. So anytime that I've been in an experience with men that can't get erections, that they choose that like, oh, I'm going to make this about pleasure and about pleasing the queen, then it becomes such a fun adventure. And, pleasing others is also just such a fun pleasure, and brings in pleasure as well to everyone.
Wonderful, wonderful. So really I want to highlight too, today as we've been talking, that play once again is a big theme of the Soft Cock Appreciation Week, that by not being pressured to be the hard penetrator all the time, that we can tap back into that part of ourselves that was young and used to know how to have a play date with somebody else, how to be creative, how to be imaginative, how to be able to create a world together and share back and forth. It's your turn, it's my turn. Let's try this, let's try that. That if we approach our intimacy, our sexuality, and as our time together to be playful, for it to be a play date. And that means even if sex is 5 minutes, right? Like you can have a weekend long play date, a week long play date, an hour long play date, half hour long play date, 5-minute long play date. But that if the energy coming through is one of play and creativity, and maybe I'm, showing what blueprint I am by saying that. But nevertheless, there needs, with all of these, the bottom line of what we're talking about today is that, especially when spontaneous desire disappears, right? For whatever reason, age, health, stress, right? Spontaneous desire meaning I see boobs, my dick comes up, right?
The breeze just hit me in the right way.
Right, exactly.
I have a hard cock.
And so many men who are having changes with their body, what they're fixated on is, this is the way it used to be. And I want that dick back. I want that penis back. I want that cock back. That's what I want back. And the reality is that it's hard to get something back because we're human beings in bodies. So we want to work with the best of what we've got and expand and grow with what it is that we have in front of us today. And the blueprints are a really wonderful way of incorporating how can I get some more ideas and some more learning and some more creativity, so that no matter how I show up, I'm going to have a good time. I'm going to bring good energy. I'm going to bring positive energy. I'm going to receive positive energy, and it's going to feel good.
Yeah, nothing will feel like a failure when you know how to play with the whole buffet of pleasure.
Exactly. And practice makes perfect. So all of the things that Jessie was sharing with us today are things that you can also do in your own masturbation practice. So you don't have to have a partner to be able to do this. And if you have a partner and you're listening to this and you think, hey, this is something to explore, have them watch this with you or take a walk and listen, and then hit Jessie up and see if as a couple you can learn some new tools.
Fun.
Good. Okay. Thank you very much. All right.